Hi students, I'm going to go through our first set of working definitions that we need to know for those of us who are going to be in the movement education fields. And so that's a great broad term for really anyone that is teaching or leading someone in a physically active type of setting. So the terms today are going to go over some of the roles of practitioners and then also movement itself. The first movement that we have, this is our overarching one. This is really what ties us all together in some of these programs that you're studying, the classes that you take, and really in what we do and what we're all about is physical activity. We're about the body. And so physical activity is bodily or skeletal movement of any kind and type. And so examples of physical activity, it's really anything. It's me getting up and sitting down, in and out of this chair as I talk and record this lecture. It's me climbing up the stairs. If I walk out to my car to go drive home, the walking is physical activity. You walking from class to class is physical activity. My grandma using her walker to walk in her assisted living facility down to bingo class, her walking down there is physical activity. An Olympic swimmer going to practice and jumping in the pool, starting their warm-up laps, that's physical activity. It's really anything that produces skeletal movement. We tend to think of it a little bit more in lines with larger skeletal movements and gross motor movements, but again, it's really any bodily movement that we have with especially skeletal muscle and skeletal components of our anatomy. Next, exercise is under the umbrella of physical activity. So exercise is physical activity, but it's a little bit more specific. It's planned and intentional physical activity. And this is also where it's different. It's meant to enhance an aspect of an individual and leads towards an outcome. So I'm going to plan and be intentional to walk to my car at the end of the workday today. However, it's not really for the purpose of enhancing my life. Maybe leads to an outcome because it gets me to the place I need to drive home. But for me, choosing to be physically active at the gym after work, that is physical activity. It's planned and intentional, and it is meant to enhance an aspect of my life, my health, my athletic performance, also my well-being, and I have specific goals that I want to reach in that training session, and so is leading towards an outcome. So those are the big differentiators of exercise. It's planned, intentional, and meant to enhance, and has an outcome. Next, physical literacy. This is a major definition, a major concept that you need to know. It starts out with two important words, both start with the letter C. Confidence and competence. They need to go hand in hand. They need to work in synergy with each other. So confidence, we know that's our feeling. It's our affect. It's how we feel about our ability to do something and about ourselves in the process. And so an athlete who feels confident feels that they are ready to perform at their next event, that they feel that they can go to practice, and even though it might be hard, that they are confident they'll still be able to complete the workout, they'll still be able to get something out of it, that it will lead them to what they need to be able to do. Maybe it's confidence in a coach, trust in a coach. That's part of that confidence aspect. It's belief in self. Competence is the actual, a little bit more objective, are they good or not at it? So that's, do you have the skills and the techniques, even to some extent, the understanding, the cognitive capacity to engage in that sort of physical activity? And so can you actually do the skills? Can you make the certain shots? Can you complete the movement? Do you have the technical proficiency? Can you do it with safe and mature movement patterns? So here's the thing. If we pull one from the other, if we have a person who is very confident in themselves, they believe they can do it, but they just don't have the technical skills, they don't have the competence for the level that they need to be moving or performing at, that's not physical literacy. Vice versa. If we have someone who's a really competent mover, they actually can really do it. They have the capacity to do it. They've been trained in how to do it, but they lack confidence. They're not going to be able to execute the competencies that they actually have. So both are really, really essential. That's the first part you need to know about physical literacy. We know too also from evidence-based practice and in general that confidence and competence work hand in hand with motivation. So we know that if we feel confident and if we are competent in something, we will have that motivation to want to persist in it, to want to continue to pursue it. And that's from our behavioral sciences that we have that understanding. It's also important to know that physical literacy is more than just confidence and competence in one activity. So say you've been learning something since 3rd grade and you've been good at that sport, you're confident in yourself, but you did nothing else. All you did, your life was about, say it was swimming. You don't know how to move well in other physical activities. Your movement profile isn't broad, doesn't have a good foundation and a variety of activities. That can be problematic later on in life. And so that's why a variety of physical activities is included in the definition of physical literacy. And so is a variety of settings. And so that means competitive settings, recreational settings, indoor, outdoor, individual, with a partner, with a team, with different types of people that are different from you, with people that you're used to playing or being around with, variety of types of settings, different types of equipment even. So really being able to go from one setting to the next, feeling confident, competent in yourself and your movement foundation. And then the last part is really ideally over a lifespan. So we all know people that maybe when they were younger or that they were a kid, their youth, they talked about their glory days, they could do X, Y, and Z. But as they get older, maybe they stopped moving. And so that means they've not necessarily lost physical literacy, but they're not continuing to pursue it. It's a constant pursuit of that because we know across our lifespan that demands on our life change and the things that we have change, the time available, the resources available, and even how our bodies function, how our genetics allow us to age, that changes. And so physical literacy is confidence, competence, a variety of activities in a variety of settings, and it's really ideally over our lifespan. Next, physical education. So it's important to know that physical education is different from physical activity. So physical education, it's a curricular program. So that immediately tells us it's in that education domain. And in our society, we see physical education as that proper noun, the name of a subject area. So a curricular area in a K through 12, most often school setting. So curricular program. And then these next big 4 words, psychomotor, cognitive, affective, and fitness, are very important. There's very specific outcomes in physical education. It's a standards-based program, national standards-based, and our areas that we teach in PE. It's not only teaching kids how to play sports and how to do fitness stuff. There is a ton of doing and teaching them how to do things, guiding them, and giving them step-by-step learning experiences to actually do things. That is our psychomotor domain. It's giving them the chance to play, to practice and participate, adjusting, fixing, showing them, giving them chances to practice, feedback opportunities to correct what they need to correct, all in that doing space. We do the same thing in the cognitive space. And so we think of traditional schooling as cognitive learning, it's knowledge. We definitely have a lot of that in physical education. A lot of times we just only think about doing, but we know that to be a successful mover, it also means you have to understand what's going on, have to understand a game situation, have to understand choices that you might have to make. Even as a consumer, understanding what is good science and bro science, what is a product that is probably okay to buy and to consume, and what is really questionable. We also have the affective domain. That relates to our feelings, our beliefs about ourselves, the way that we treat ourselves and others in a movement type of setting. It also relates to just love of movement, joy that we have, motivation, everything that's involving that kind of feeling, kind of soft skills type of space. And this is an interesting area that we've seen a lot of growth and demand in, especially in the school setting. as social and emotional learning has come to the forefront and now kind of the last part of this decade of a necessary aspect of schools, the affective domain absolutely covers teaching kids how to be resilient, how to come back after failure, how to cope with stress, how to cope with pressure. And when we have physical training, performance, game settings, these are kind of like controlled environments for all of those things. We have winning and losing. We have pressure. We have uncomfortable situations. And the teacher puts kids in these safe and controlled settings to experience some of these things and to learn how to get through them. And so a huge important role that we have to really apply a lot of our social and emotional learning. So that's considered our affective domain. And then of course we have fitness. And so that is working on a health and or skill related just capacity to move. And so those are some of our traditional aspects of fitness we'll for sure see in physical education. But it's important to know that this is a curricular program that involves all 4 of these areas. It's not just fitness. It's not just doing things. It's definitely not just physical activity or just playing or teacher throwing some equipment out and the kids moving around with it. Next, second half of what makes physical education unique and different, especially from just physical activity or recess, or even having maybe a personal trainer come into the school and lead kids through a workout, or having kids go to their athletic practice or their show choir practice. Physical education involves planned, standards-based, developmentally appropriate instruction for where they are at. So for where kids are at as individuals, where classes are at as groups, a physical educator provides opportunities to learn. And so that's a really unique space. They create and craft unique learning experiences for these kids to get from point A to point B to show growth. There's individual and program assessment in physical education. So if you're planning something, if you're saying, hey, I'm going to meet this fitness outcome or this affective outcome related to grit or related to self-determination with my students, you have to be able to prove it, that your kids went from point A to point B. So assessment is always part of it. And then the other and last aspect that's very important is that it's inclusive in nature. It is for all students, all abilities, genders, sexual orientation, backgrounds, cultures, races, everything. Schools are for everyone, and we want to make sure that it's inclusive. And this is also something that can make physical education different from, say, an athletic environment, is that's not necessarily all inclusive, which is okay that it's not. But physical education, because it's part of the school day, it's part of the school structure, needs to be inclusive, just like all of our other subjects and learning experiences are. That brings us to teaching. So physical education is a learning environment in a curricular setting, so we need teachers to teach in it. Teaching is an instructional practice, a little bit different from coaching, which we'll see next. It involves creating learning experiences. And these experiences will guide students through progressions, individuals or groups, and to a desired growth based outcome. So growth is key here, taking them from point A to point B so the kids and students can experience learning and that they are able to practice and get feedback for what has been taught and what has been showed and also what's been guided in this process. Very similar to teaching brings us to coaching, and they do intersect. And just know that teaching is a part of coaching. It also falls under that umbrella, and vice versa. Coaching can fall under the aspect of teaching. So coaching is leadership and management. It's those practices together that involve guiding an individual or group towards a performance-based outcome. And so the big thing here that is different is what the outcome is. Growth-based is teaching, performance-based is how we're going to define coaching here. And so we think of an athletic coach or a sport coach. They want to win a game. They want to win the conference championship, national championship. They want to score so many points, get so many stats. And so those are performance-based outcomes. It's a little bit more product-oriented. It doesn't mean that coaching is not concerned with the process and with learning or growth. They usually are, and a really good coach is going to also include all of those aspects of teaching in their practice. But really coaching, it's leadership, over a team or an individual, it's helping manage them and it's really guiding them. It's not quite as much handcrafting these learning experiences, even though of course they do that, but it's more of involving guiding. It's guiding a process. So if we think of coaching or a team setting, often there's other coaches, there's assistants, there's related professionals that the coaches have to interact with and be engaged with in that process to help bring the team or bring the individual to that performance-based outcome. Fitness. This is one of our most hotly contested definitions of what is fitness itself as a noun. What does it mean to be fit? Who do we consider fit? What actually does fit look like? Which that in itself is a problem, because fitness is not about what something looks like. That's an aesthetic quality. Fitness is a capacity. And so our general definition we're going to do is our capacity for doing work that's in line with the desired outcome. And so that's where we can differentiate who's really fit or not. So if we think of the type of fitness and the level of fitness that's necessary for an elite swimmer to compete in international competitions and in the Olympics, they have a pretty specific type of fitness that they're going to need that might be different than the type of fitness that, let's say, an Olympic shot putter needs. That's going to be a different type of fitness than the level of fitness my grandma needs to be able to go to a water aerobic class and be confident and competent there. And so it's the capacity that you have for doing the work that's necessary in that desired situation or outcome. In our profession, we add the word physical. We have physical fitness. So it does involve physical exertion. Physical activity is a part of it. We do hear about other types of fitness. So financial fitness, social fitness, emotional fitness, and those are all capacity for doing the things that need to be done in those settings. But in ours, it is going to involve physical exertion. So this is a broad and general definition. We definitely understand it will look different depending on what that desired outcome, if the outcome is health, or if it's to play with grandkids, or if it's to win an Olympic medal in a specific sport. Very different there. Sport, also one of our more hotly contested working definitions. Here's what we're going to agree upon for now. It's a competitive physical activity. So here's an example I always give. Yoga is a physical activity. Yoga can be exercise if I plan and intend to do it, and if I do it for a specific reason to enhance my life, maybe to be more flexible or to have more stability, or to be stronger, be more relaxed. Yoga by nature is not competitive. It's one of our few physical activities that are out there that are innately in their nature not competitive, not meant to be competitive. And so sport is a competitive physical activity. So that means people are competing in it. And this is also where it becomes unique. It has agreed upon rules, an agreed upon format of play, agreed upon competition guidelines, and then usually some level of governance. And so on a very small scale, if it's kids in the neighborhood make up a game and they decide what the game's going to be, give it a name, what are the rules, how to play it, what does competition look like, how do you win, how do you lose? That's a sport, technically. And then we also go large scale. We think of our larger levels of governance, like our international committees for the sports, or like, for example, the International Olympic Committee, very formal levels of government. Then they establish rules and format and competitive guidelines and all that. So just know it's competitive physical activity. We're going to have sport be considered something physical, which that in itself has a broad definition of how much physical activity needs to be happening for it to be a sport or what type, but there's agreed upon aspects of the game and governance. Sports performance. This is a broad definition we're going to be taking right now, and a little bit of a holistic definition. So if we think of sport, let's say we'll use the sport of tennis, for example. Coaching the sport of tennis happens on the court. Teaching in coaching, so teaching people strokes, teaching them about the game, changing and tweaking their technique, talking about strategy for gameplay and performance, that's on the court. Sport performance is all of the aspects that are off the court or off the field or off the track, wherever your competitive zone is. It's off-field or off-court development that involves a variety of aspects of physical, cognitive, and mental performance enhancing practices. So we could put sport nutrition in the large umbrella category of sport performance. We could put strength and conditioning in the large category of this. We could put sport psychology in this large category. We could put massage therapy, any type of rehab type of modality, hydration, rest and sleep, recovery monitoring, even sports medicine to some extent, for how they work in injury prevention, to help optimize performance. Because obviously if you're injured, that's not optimal. They all could fall in this category. So think of sport performance as kind of a holistic network of individuals and providers and practices that are off field that help the mover or the person do what they need to do on the field better to their highest potential. And then finally, we have strength and conditioning. So this is one of those specific aspects of sport performance that I do want you to know and focus on. It's off field, of course, it's physical training and components of fitness. And so we've talked about components of fitness on another setting, another situation. And it's these aspects of fitness development that can improve an individual's on-field capacity to perform. So it's the work that they do off the field, not sport technique. This is training the body in a way to perform at its highest capacity for what the demand is on the field. And so that includes anything and everything related to strength training, related to stability, related to general conditioning, agility, change of direction, force production, speed development, reaction time, general strength, general stamina, endurance, any and all of the above, their flexibility, their mobility, all of that falls into the role of strength and conditioning and what a strength and conditioning professional does. That's it for today for our definitions. Here's our first set. These are all things. Get to understand the working definition, how it might be a little different than what you've maybe been told or what society thinks something is, but these are the definitions we're going to use moving forward.